Hello folks, hope you're having a good day. Welcome to some more Hobby Nightmares. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below. Please help me reach my target of 40,000 subscribers. We are well on our way to it. Well, kind of anyway, we're getting there. And if you want to send in your own Hobby Nightmares, make sure you use the email down below, hobbynightmares@gmail.com. All good? Happy? Good. Let's get on with it, shall we? And my days, if only you guys could listen to the outtakes, maybe for charity one day, because I've got them all recorded. I may do an outtakes video where you get to listen to me swear at myself for not getting the words right on an intro and outro or something. Anyway, Cliff says, "Hi Northern." Hello, Cliff. "I absolutely enjoy your stories through and through. It eventually got me the courage to bring up my own hobby nightmare from South Africa. Although not as spicy as most of your other stories, it was quite scary." Okay. "I started Warhammer back in 2006, a few years after I had matriculated. It was actually by chance that I found out miniature wargaming as I walked past the store on a specific Saturday that they were playing 40k. I actually was a big fan of Pokemon back then and basically only collected the cards. The shop's name, funnily enough, was Wizards Books and Games. I remember seeing those massive Battlefront boxes and a wall of blisters of metal minis. Now, not knowing anything about Warhammer, I didn't know it was faction specific. I remember going in and talking to a staff member about Warhammer, and they were quick to speak about fantasy more than 40k, which could have meant he was trying to upsell this instead of 40k. And to be fair, he had over around 70% fantasy in there, and when I had landed up choosing up and buying my first two boxes, the space was immediately replaced with 40k stuff." Yeah, it sounds like he was trying to get rid of his fantasy stock, you know? "I started a Warhammer Chaos Fantasy army, but the main reason behind fantasy over 40k was that I worked all swan weekends when they mainly played. Every time I go to the next page right now, my eyes go all squiffy. Anyway, when they mainly played to pay off my studies, etc." Okay. "So fantasy played on a Wednesday night and was perfect for me. I eventually got into the game of fantasy and still have the massive rule book from back then with some scribbles in it in the last few pages where there was an army builder. Awesome. I remember those back in the day. I remember those. Do you remember the old Chaos? The one thing that got me away from Chaos, right, this is North talking, in fantasy back in the day, were the goofy-ass Warriors of Chaos models. I swear to God, they were just standing there like Lego soldiers. They're just awful. You know what I mean? We were still selling them when I was at Games Workshop. Literally, still back then. We were still selling them in the Armies of Darkness Start Collecting. And I just couldn't reliably put people towards that box because I knew there were much better Chaos Warband models out there that weren't Games Workshop. Do you know what I mean? Awful models. I don't know. Not for me. It's the same as the my least favourite 40k character or model of all time is the Watchmaster of the Death Watch. Just standing there. Just looking at you. Hand by his side, the other hand on a spear, just holding it like, you know, on the floor. Suppose I could be a Watchmaster, yeah, suppose, I mean, you know. Come on, mate! Where's your sweeping robes? Where's your shit? Right? Nonsense. Who in the actual fucking studio looked at that model and went, "That's the one, Dave. That's the one. Get that to market straight away." I love it when models look like they're doing nothing and they're waiting for a fucking bus. I love it. I love it when my models look like they're waiting for the fucking 22 back into town. You know what I mean? Nonsense. Anyway. Alas, I landed up getting over 2,000 points of minis for Chaos and was actually doing quite well in my first year of Warhammer hobbying. Out of 20 plus players, I was always placing top 3, but I never won. I was a competitive person and would always aim to have fun, but my dice rolls and finals would never work, and I'm sure most enthusiasts know about that drama. I would donate those dice to the store's army. The best compliment I ever got was from a veteran whom nobody had ever beaten, when we had such a close game, and he told me, and I quote, "In all the years of fantasy, that was the best game I have ever experienced." And he saw a lot of potential from someone like me, especially in the small amount of time I had been involved in the hobby. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. Greybeards, you should do more of this. Nurture these people. Anyway, here comes the nightmare. There was this guy. We will call him Mr. TK for Tomb Kings. Since he played Tomb Kings and joined the club, and was a veteran apparently in Warhammer Fantasy. Okay, fair enough. Anyway, the one night it was his turn to challenge me in a massive campaign that we played involving fantasy and league standings. He smirked and laughed at my models the Wednesday before we had to play, stating that my painting is not up to par, and he will likely wipe the floor with them, as his Tomb Kings always seem to beat my chaos. I don't know if it was anything to do with his league standing or plain arrogance of being unbeaten, but I gladly accepted, and the date was set for the following Wednesday night at 6 PM. All through the night, whilst playing his game, he would remark about how lucky I was, how badly painted my models were, etc. Which was annoying because we were all there to wind down and enjoy a good game of fantasy. Anyway, Mr. TK dominated his game and decimated his opponent. He looked over to me and said this was going to happen to me next week. The guy he beat was second in our league, with Mr. TK being first and me being around 6th or so. Anyway, the night came for the big game. I even packed my models the morning before work. I had a normal day at work and eventually got home and packed my car with my army and proceeded to the venue. Upon arriving, the place was buzzing and quite busy for a Wednesday night. All tables were full of games, and all of them were full steam ahead. I got there around 5 PM and had to wait the 1 hour before the game. Well, you got there at 5, man. He's not being late. One game had ended early, and Mr. TK approached me and showed me the table and got somebody, his friend, to set up the table for us. The table was set up, and because of our strange rules, etc., the first person at the table, etc., gets to choose which side first. So obviously, he had this planned out. Anyway, I didn't worry much because it's for fun. Note that I said I wanted to have fun. Now, no mate, I know what's going to happen here, right? He's going to batter you and you're going to moan. Okay? I'll read on, obviously, but that's what I think is going to happen here. And if it does, I want you to realise the part you played here. Alright? You've let him basically get away with murder here. He selected the table, he selected the terrain, he selected the battlefield. You're a bad general. You don't let your opponent select the battlefield. Any general will tell you that. If you fight on a battlefield of your opponent's choosing, prepare to lose. All right? You should both be at the table, setting up the terrain with an impartial person if you don't know each other. So it's fair, right? Even your mission that you select needs to be fair and down the middle. Give you both an even chance of winning. Now, on the flip side of this, you know what kind of a guy this is. You know he's ultra competitive. You challenged him, not the other way around, right? So if you come into this saying, I just wanted a fun game, that's bollocks. And it annoys me, right? No, you didn't. You wanted a fun game now that you've lost, right? But coming into the game, you were really wanting a competitive game because you wanted to beat this guy. Do you know what I mean? Right. You may win, you may lose, but I've read so many of these where somebody comes in and says, oh, I'll play you, Mr. Competitive Person. You know, I'll play you. You know, and then they lose and go, well, I was only in it for fun and he took advantage of me. No, he didn't. He didn't. You knew what his playstyle was when you played him, which is why I say, always choose your opponents carefully. Your hobby time is extremely precious. That's A1, what you should do, right? Play with people who are going to accentuate the fun things you like about the hobby. Alright, moving on. I love a cup of tea. Anyway. I fetch my Games Workshop cases from my car and begin to unpack my models onto my side of the table when I noticed 1 or 2 models had broken in transit somehow. Mr. TK took no time to point this out and moaned that my models were broken and that was not fair. So here was me running around asking for super glue and asking Mr. TK if he had any, to which he replied, "No, you should always bring your own." And then he doesn't lend his out, of course. Anyway, I got my models fixed. I'm praying for them to hold, as I didn't want to apparently upset my opponent. We had our sides, and he won the dice roll to see who goes first, and took first turn. He moved all of his units as far as he could forwards, spent all of his incantations on movement up, and waited. Tried to casket me and failed. Note, I was a Khorne Horde Chaos Army, which got extra attacks and frenzy and no fear. I moved a slight way up, not to my full movement, which I learned from the guy earlier in my story about the best game he had ever had. I ended my turn. Mr. TK then moved full movement instead of thinking about my charge range and proceeded to move even further up with movement spells. Biggest mistake he had ever made. His Lord Hierophant that causes crumble was in a block of 19 skeletons about 12 inches away from my knights, and a flank charge, which I think he forgot to predict. Back then it wasn't pre-measuring, arrogantly stating why he is number 1 in the league and how he will win nationals, etc. All this time, like I said, not knowing what he did wrong with his movement. Time to unleash hell, and I really did in this turn. Imagine every dice roll going perfect, everything going your way. The godly turn that everybody wishes for. I lined up my charges and declared everything in my army full steam ahead that could charge and blood for the blood god Khorne. Flank charged the skeletons after him arguing that the angle was out. Even his mate confirmed that it was in though. Both chariots into his tomb guard, one chariot into the front where the skeletons and knights were, okay. So you're literally, this is what Khorne players do. They're literally there the entire, we're going forwards. This is the turn. If you're playing any sort of Khorne army against them, right, this is the turn you want to avoid. Alright? As soon as he gets off 4 or 5 charges, you may as well remove your models. You know, like, this is the turn you want to avoid. If you're playing World Eaters, against Khorne Berserkers, against anything like that is Khorne related, if they're getting 4 to 5 charges off in a single turn, you failed, right? Anyway, my lord went into the front of his horse, on his horse, into the Tomb Guard Witch King. I knew his Tomb King had that horrible Strength 7 Insta-Chariot Destroyer, but I was confident I could kill him in a challenge, and if not, the chariots could do their work. My knights literally wrecked his block. 16 attacks and 14 dead skeletons. Horses with 4 kills. Nothing to hit back. Explode his crumbling dude and overrun his horseman flank charge. I just saw the smirk, the arrogant smile, disappear faster than a wink. His demeanour changed completely. Now for the other fight with his Tomb Guard, and I issue the challenge, and I have no other way but to accept, he has no other option but to accept or lose attacks. Dude, I can tell you're getting excited with the memory here, but please reread your stuff. Like, I've spent most of this paragraph here, this massive paragraph, where you're telling us what is going on, deciphering what you've said. Because it's all over the place. Alright? So make sure you reread what you've done. I know he will destroy me, but I'll explode that unit to crumble and combat res, and yes, that happened. Okay, I'm just going to skip that now, because this is all gaming jargon. That's going to go over a lot of people's heads. We want to find out, you know, how things go, right? It was like Christmas, and he got a bicycle, and I stole it from him. He stormed off and left the premises. I stood there in shock. I guess I got the win. Wow. He literally had a breakdown at the end of the game. He started throwing dice and having a tantrum. He didn't even want to turn 3. He just started packing up and proceeded to leave without even shaking my hand. Okay. He was scheduled for another game the following week with somebody else and didn't pitch. It happened for almost 1 month, and eventually he did pitch up. He walked into the club and straight up to me and said that I had cheated and he wanted a rematch. Everybody was shocked, so I did accept anyway, because the more games I get, the more experience I get before the Nationals. Let's not get into the details, but this guy didn't get past turn 3 without being left with 20% of his army. The guy I could see was not having this again. I could imagine the thoughts in his head on how can this happen, etc. when he was number 1. Again, and it was coming, that outburst and tantrum was on its way. The guy threw another one again. Now this is a person who was 8 years older than me, acting worse than an 8-year-old not getting their way. He threw dice, he didn't even pack his models away and threw them in his case. I'm sure some of them broke. He was then confronted by the appointed captain of the club. He then came over to me, apologised, and left immediately. From that day onwards, this guy has never played against me. He would instant forfeit whenever I came around, and we got paired together at a tournament or event. This guy never wanted to play against me ever again. Even when I got my second fantasy army, he looked at my models and would moan and cry. I would literally beat this guy through pre-war intimidation these days. Eventually, he left the club to play somewhere else, and let's just say the tempo in the club changed to a more bearable and fun evening. From Cliff. Alright, man. South African wargamer, currently play 40k Grey Knights. Good, man of culture, man of taste. For those of you who think, there will be a lot of people, either in the comments or elsewhere, who think that, you know, behaviour like this is kind of rare. It may be. But I know at least one guy who's in his 50s who acts like this. Okay? And it's not so much in wargaming, although he does do it in gaming too. If you're playing a game with him, he will get his knickers in a twist. No, I'm talking, you know, if you're going out and about and you say something he doesn't agree with, or he just has he's had a bad day, he will flip out and leave. You know, I know at least one guy, probably two actually, but at least one guy who are literally like this, right? Like they break down. They can't handle human interaction after a while. I think also this guy has been so confident and comfortable at being number 1. Have you ever heard that saying that to be number 1, you have to train, act, and prepare as if you're number 2? Right? Those are the guys that you never unseat from being the best. Whether it's in a gaming club, or in boxing, or in martial arts, or whatever. In sport, whatever. You never unseat those dudes. If a dude is really good and always prepares, he's number 1, but he prepares like he's a chaser. He prepares like he's number 2. That's the guy you're never getting past, right? You know? Hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. Always say that to students. You may be really good at something, but hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. And that's what we just saw here, right? This guy, Cliff, isn't the best wargamer in the world, but he knew his codex, he knew his rules, he knew his army back to front, he knew the rules of the game back to front, he got better, and eventually he overtook somebody who's more naturally gifted at the game than he is, right? There you go. There's the spirit of the story, the moral of the story there. Always work hard, always try and get better. Never rest on your laurels like that guy did, because you'll end up in a similar situation, getting a rather nasty shock when somebody comes up to you and hands you your ass on a platter. Anyway, Slave to Parasite says, "Good evening, Mr. Exile. I've been listening to you since way back before the follow-up video to your original Games Workshop story." Wow, that's a long time, dude. You're an OG. Like, that's you were literally... Does that mean you were here when I was getting, like... So, in maybe 2020... or 2019, 2020, these are the videos where I'd post gameplay videos of me playing different games and stuff, and I would get like 300 views, and I consider that a good day. Do you know what I mean? Wow, 300 views on a single video, you know? If you're one of those, then thank you, because you've seen the channel change a lot over the years, and I hope you stick around because you enjoy being here. That'd be awesome. Anyway, I don't want to even think about how many years that is now. I'm on the darker side of 30, and time is passing way too fast these days. I agree. I always look forward to your videos, and they get me through cooking, washing up, hoovering, or whatever mundane job I'm cracking on with at the time. Thanks for helping me. Thanks for keeping me entertained over the last few years. It's been a blast. So keep doing what you're doing, please. Thank you, man. Those really are a shot in the arm to me. Don't ever think that I take those for granted when people tell me that, because I don't think my content is very good, my channel's very good, or I'm very good, right? I'm just here to shoot the shit and maybe entertain a few people. That's all I'm here for. And to help with mental health, obviously. That's what the channel is here for. Anyway, moving on. Every time I listen to Hobby Nightmares, I'm always gutted that I don't have a fun story to send in. Stupid, I know. They are nightmares, after all. Everyone that sent one in so far has presumably felt like crap during these events of their story, so not having one is actually quite a blessing. In truth, my experience of Warhammer as a hobby has been 99% positive, with the 1% being so minor it's not even worth mentioning, so I've actually been incredibly lucky so far. Despite my largely positive experience of the hobby, it recently came to me that I did, in fact, have a short story to tell that I had forgotten about or perhaps buried. This is the story of how I completely misjudged a local tournament and probably came across as an insidious invader. Okay. Wow, this is interesting. Alright. At this point, please glance lovingly at your tea, give it a wink, blow it a kiss, and promise to call it soon. Keep the excitement in your relationship alive. What me and Yorkshire Tea have is very special, and she doesn't require reassurance, right? You know, it's all good. It's all good. She doesn't even mind me seeing other teas, as long as I always come back to her at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, where was I? Right, okay, sorry. I'm not a big tournament player. I've attended 3 during my 12 or so Warhammer years, 2 of which have been very casual affairs, including the tournament that is the subject of this story. I'm very much a jack-of-all-trades hobbyist, same as me, man, splitting my time and energy between building, converting, painting, and playing. I'm going to have a little drink of tea. Sorry about that. My tea went down the wrong way. Oh, do you know when you think, wow, humanity has really evolved, you know, that we're such godlike creatures, and then you either bite the inside of your own mouth or swallow the wrong way, and you end up like a sputtering lunatic. Anyway, back to the Hobby Nightmare. Sorry about that, folks. Alright. Weirdly, I enjoy basing my models the most. It's always like a little treat to myself once I finish painting them. I'm the same! I'm the same. Yes, I do that all the time. I love basing my models. I'm doing desert bases for the Void Talons, and my god is it fun, because you know you get to dry brush the base and then dry brush his feet and the bottom half of his legs too, and it just brings the whole model together. It looks brilliant, and you're just like, yeah, I love this. Anyway, I'll shut up now and get on with what I'm supposed to be talking about. Attached is a photo of Mortarion, who I painted not long ago after he spent a year or two of this stint in his box. I'll put that on Friday, man, alright? Friday's the day. I'm not the best 40k player by any stretch. I struggle to remember rules and take too long to make discussions and decisions, and my playstyle tends to be, fuck it. Everything forwards into the fight, let's go. Followed by quickly regretting this and having half of my models die immediately. If it wasn't for the dice gods, I'd have lost way more games over the years. I'm not especially tactically minded, but I enjoy the social side of gaming and getting to see my lovingly painted models on the tabletop. With all of this in mind, I'll very briefly go over my first tournament as a preface to the main story, okay? I attended a doubles tournament with my friend Jeff. That's not his real name, but he looks like a slightly slimmer and less scouse version of Jeff from the Painting Phase, a YouTube channel with some great painting videos and discussion around the hobby for anybody unfamiliar. Alright, cool. So I'll call him Jeff for that reason. It was a one-day tournament with 3 rounds, and we performed very badly. Round 1 saw us up against a couple of very skilled players, who absolutely trounced us, but were nothing but courteous and friendly, so no complaints there. Round 2, for fuck's sake we should have had that round, had us paired against 2 of the nicest guys we met that day, one of whom, a history teacher I might add, I met for a game a week or so later, and had a really good time. During our tournament game, we only got through 2 or 3 turns, and the game was at a point where, if we had been able to continue to the next turn, we were pretty much guaranteed a win, but alas, the clock ran out, and we lost. Disappointing, but as it turns out, a blessing in disguise, as will become clear shortly. I can't remember anything about the final game, but suffice to say, we lost the game. Dude, when you lose to a technicality, when you've done so well, that's going to be the right kick in the teeth. The end of the day came around, and the final results were announced. First place went to our round 1 opponents, which made sense, they were very good. Second place was announced, then third placed, best painted, etc., etc., all the rest. Did you get the wooden spoon? Then came the wooden spoon award. Our arseholes clenched with anticipation. This had to be us. And it was! We didn't receive an actual wooden spoon, but instead a small poop emoji trophy, each with a plaque at the bottom that said, simply, you were shit. I fucking loved it, and mine still sits in pride of place on my hobby shelf at home. So that was my first tournament experience. Both Jeff and I had a great day, and our poor performance gave me some insight into the effort required to compete in tournaments. Along comes tournament number 2, and the subject of our nightmare. I thought that was a nightmare, okay. Following the doubles event, I had a bit of a dry patch gaming-wise. My usual gaming partners were frequently unavailable, and I wasn't able to get in many matches. So I sought out local clubs to try. There is one in my hometown, but there aren't many 40k players there, so I looked into other clubs to try out. I found another club in a nearby town, 15 minutes away, and chatted to the chief guy of the club, who informed me that they always welcome new members and that they had a small 1250 point tournament coming up the following week, and that I was more than welcome to attend. Amazing, I thought. I've done a tournament, I know how this shit goes, let's do it. Yeah, 1250 is a nice point place because it gives you like 1000 points of your army and then 250 points to spend on a big centerpiece unit. I like that as a thing. That's cool. So I get to work crafting the finest Death Guard list, 1250 points goodbye. The experience of my first tournament had shown me that I needed to take my time, tailoring my list to be as competitive as possible, using the best my faction had to offer, lest I be deeply shamed with poor trophies for my poor performance. I spent a good 3 hours tailoring my winning list, which is at least 90% longer than I normally spend writing a list, ensuring that it was the best of the best of the best. I was ready. I pulled my best war face and set off for battle. I turned up on the day to the church hall in which the club met and introduced myself. Okay, well that's good. You introduce yourself and you're a good lad. I can't be doing with guys who just walk into an event and just skulk off, you know. Go around, shake people's hands, be a nice guy. Everybody I met was either very friendly or, as is tradition, a bit socially awkward, but nonetheless pleasant. After a time, the aforementioned chief guy announced that although the tournament winner would be decided based on match wins, there would be a sub-contest going between the different major factions, Imperium, Chaos and Xenos, and there would be an overall winner of the tournament and the major factions announced at the end. The first games were announced, and I was paired against my first opponent. I forget which army he played, but the result of the game was a resounding win for myself. Hurrah! I absolutely obliterated him on both points and units destroyed. And it was at this point that I realised that perhaps I had misjudged the kind of contest I had walked into. I will repeat at this point that I am not the best player or even a good player. This was and is still true. So the margin by which I beat the first opponent was unlikely at best. The initial pride I felt at winning was quickly replaced with a sense of dread. The game ended, my opponent shook my hand, and I thanked him for a great game and moved on to round 2. The result was almost identical, and I felt terrible. I had come into this expecting a hard fight and to receive a massive arse pounding, much as I had in my first tournament. Instead, 2 arse poundings did indeed occur, but with me as the daddy, not the reverse. Dude, if you're not like, you may be in the closet. You know, so those of you, right? So there's a scene in The Sopranos back in the day where a gay gangster is about to be, you know, beaten to death for being gay, and it's like really horrific. And but the subcontext is the boss that's doing it to him is also gay, but is repressed, right? And when they're in the hotel room, the boss has been hiding in the closet, and the way he just opens the closet and steps out is like, that's the best writing ever. He's literally coming out the closet, right? I just loved it. It was so funny. It's the look of like dead anger on his face as he just steps out the closet. Ah, you know, like, is that you? Is that you, slave to the parasites? Are you just stepping out the closet? I don't know. If you can, go and look at that scene on YouTube. In fact, pause my video, go and do it now, and have a giggle. Because every time I see it, it's tragic what's going on. But every time I see him step out that closet, I just burst out laughing. It's so funny. No other show did it like that, where something horrible is happening, but it still makes you laugh in another part because you know the characters that well. Anyway. The third game came around, and I was paired up with another guy who had won his first 2 games. He was a Space Wolves player. Ponytail, beard, the works. But a lovely guy despite this. I fully expected to be beaten at this point. Mate, Space Wolf players who look the part, ponytail, beard, the works, usually are dads, right? And jolly men who like Saturday morning cartoons. Nothing wrong with them. Very happy. Very, very good lads, you know. It's the other ones who tend to like to bully other people for being into other armies. There are the douchebags, right? So don't get me wrong. Most wolf players are just fine, you know. So I fully expected to be beaten at this point, okay? Turn the page. No. While he did put up more of a fight, I got another clear win, and my survivor's guilt renewed once more. My opponent and I congratulated each other on a good game, and the day was over. All that was left was to announce the winners. Oh my god, you're going to be so fucking cringe. At this point, I knew I had a strong chance of winning, and I was not feeling good about it. The tournament organiser called everybody to attention and announced the overall winner. Me! There was a polite round of applause, and I was presented with my prize, a box of Maltesers. The most British thing ever. The internal cringe was at an absolute maximum now. I had turned up at a brand new club for the first time for what I thought was a hardcore tournament against hardened veterans, brought the best list I could muster, and trounced 3 opponents who had brought fun and thematic lists. All to win a box of fucking Maltesers. I'm not complaining about the prize in the slightest, more at myself for not reading the room beforehand and realising what I was walking into. The prize was a clear indication of the level of sweatiness and sweetness expected at the event, of which I clearly and unintentionally exceeded, in terms of sweatiness at least. But it gets worse. No. The next announcement was Best Chaos Player. Guess who won that? That's so funny. Yep, another box of Maltesers to me. God, you must have been mortified. Next award, Most Sporting Player. Who won it? You guessed it. After all that, after being welcomed into this new club for the first time as a guest and invited to attend this, as it turns out, casual tournament, not only did I inadvertently wipe the floor with 3 opponents, I also managed to swing a Most Sporting Player award. Suffice to say, I very humbly collected my awards, eyes at the floor the entire time. I gave 1 box of Maltesers to the other attendees to share, and took 1 home to give to my kids. I left and never went back to that club again. I still cringe about what they must have thought of me after that day. Thanks for listening to my story. I guess the lesson to be learned here is, before attending an event or a club, scope out what they're like beforehand, and be sure to ask somebody there what the player base is like. Thanks, North. Carry on being awesome. Don't walk away from that club, man. That sounds like a really nice club. You realise the absolute gift you've got. The gift you have of having a club there that you can go to with nice people in it. Dude, take it with both hands. Tone down your lists, and you've got an excuse to bring fluffy, normal lists. You're living the dream. Go back. Go back. Honestly. You know? They gave you a Sporting Player Award. They obviously liked you. Go back. You're living the dream, dude. You've made it. Don't not go back because, you know, your depression or your anxiety or whatever is telling you not to. Go back and have fun. Jesus, man. You're a popular guy. You're liked there. Do it. Go back. Have fun. All right? Anyway, I love you guys. Long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for a 40k rant that is on Games Workshop managers and how actually we don't like our customer base very much. I know, controversial, I know. And on Friday we'll be doing another Hobby Nightmares where we will also be looking through people's models that they have sent in towards the end of the video. So I love you a long time. I'll see you then. Have a wonderful rest of your day and I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.